Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Breakthrough Innovation. With us today is Alex Pyatigorskiy. Alex is a seasoned, I'm glad I said that right. Did I say that right, Alex? I got it?
Almost. Yeah,
Almost.
almost there.
Alex is a seasoned management consultant. He typically specializes in driving innovation within organizations. He applies a lot of things like agile, lean, and human-centered design, which is great because that's what we love here at Breakthrough Innovation. He brings a wealth of experience in transforming business processes, in fostering those creative problem-solving environments. He has a particular focus on data products and innovation and how those really impact an organization. So, Alex, again, we're so excited to have you on with us today.
I'm excited to be here.
Let's jump in maybe with the first question and just ask what brought you here, or what brought you to the point you are today. I'd love to hear just a little bit more about how you came to this part of your career.
I mean, for the last 17 years, I've been working as a product person, basically being like in the middle of the three dimensions of customers, making everything customer-centric, product and sales, basically how we position in the product, and the development part. So how do we make it as efficient as possible? I've done so within the startups. I worked for the large corporations, pretty big ones. I've been working for the Walt Disney, for one of the largest telco providers. And for the last, almost 10 years, I've been working within the financial and fintech industry. I like to think of myself as a person that basically makes life of the customer easier and helps the company that I work with to be upfront of the changes that happening in the world, that this kind of digital transformation of the mind, of the usage of everything. That's basically where I want to be. That's why I shifted to the fintech, because that's where I see most of the transformation happening right now.
Well, I love how you described that as not just being the digital transformation, but the change in mindset. I think that's one overlooked area. I see a lot of companies who try to implement their digital transformation by here's a new tool to use. And that often doesn't work. In fact, I don't know that I've ever seen that work. So my next question is, what are some of the challenges that you see? Why doesn't it work so much? What do innovations need to do what do corporations need to do to make innovation work for them?
Okay, to answer that question, let's just take a step back on what's actually changing, because that's kind of explains everything. The biggest change in our life that happening in the last decade is basically the lack of time on anything. So everything happens much quicker. We have less time to look at advertisements. We have less time to read. We have less time on anything, because the digital era brings so much opportunities, vast amount of data on our heads every single second of the time. So the people, the users, we don't have time for anything. That's the biggest change, the biggest transformation that is happening on the customer side. We don't have time to review the data, the experiences, the review, whatever, ask around about anything. So many of our purchases and any actions, not only the purchases, that before that were just a result of some kind of a research that we're doing, now are much more emotional. So we have an emotional decisions on buying things which were actually used to be rational, like, freezer. That's kind of an emotional. You buy it because it's size, color, your understanding of how it should be environmentally healthy. So from the perspective of the corporation, which is like very successful for the last 30, 40, 50 years, that's not something in common, because you do have your ways of working. They are working so far right now. And why would we change them, right?
Right.
That's why we see a lot of disruptive companies there that are basically coming and saying, we're not going to do it this way. We're just going to disrupt it altogether. We just put it upside down and do that. Yeah, in the US economy, that doesn't really work in all the industries, but what we've seen globally, the financial industry is very, very disrupted, and we do have those digital kind of solutions that are interrupting the ways that people use their money currently. So the biggest challenge is over there. If you do have the top management team, especially CEO, with the mindset which is not open to all this the agile type transformation, which is happening in the minds of the customers, you are not ready for any kind of transformation. And that will be just, here is your new tool, please go with it. Funny thing is that the most fancy transformational thing there, AI, is the very best example of that. I mean, if you can see that many companies, what they do, and I'm just referring here the new report from the Boston Consulting Group that they launched, that 80% of AI kind of implementation budget of the companies are on automating some small stuff, some routine tasks. And that's not how you actually transform the business, right? If you want AI to transform what you're doing, to make a new kind of product, to make a step ahead, you need to aim for the big stuff, aim for the big transformation, like a very general, massive things, not the small stuff. And that's basically what's the definition of being successful transformative company, and just using technology because it's fancy.
I think that reminds me of a study done by McKinsey a while back, and they talked about successful transformations being all in. And JL and I use the statistics a lot because it's great for us, because it says that about 70% of transformations fail outright. About 22% of those transformations succeed very minorly, like barely succeed. And the top 8% often succeed by orders of magnitude. And so what makes that top 8% different from the other 92%? And it's usually that they went all in. And I think it's to your point, Alex, it's that they picked something big and did it. I think 50 years ago, you could pick something relatively small and you could do this incremental change, but it feels to me like the rate of change has just increased so much that you don't have time to do the incremental change. You have to do the big change, because if you don't hit it now, 2 years from now, the small startup competitor will completely eat your lunch.
Absolutely. I mean, there are different strategies on the transformation. You can be innovator in a space and you need just to have a leap of faith and act on it. You can be a smart repeater. That's also a very good strategy. You can look at someone who is just over there and just do the same in a better way. But even so, you need to keep in mind an understanding of how it's done inside, how everything is organized. And that's very essential. If you're not organized in a way that you will be able to move very fast and in a very agile pace, you're not going to be there. You will not be able to repeat whatever the innovative partner that you're looking at will do, right? So the faith in all in, always there. I am usually hired when companies see the need for any kind of transformation from within. And when I'm entering the job, by talking to the seniors, by talking to the top management, I usually know where I am right now. If I see that there are like a lot of hesitation, they're not understanding why they're doing that. They're just doing it for someone says, some big research company says that we need to do that, but they are not all buying. I usually understand that I am kind of a part of a transformational team, which is not the last. We will be fired at some point. They will hire another one. They will fire them. Usually the fourth team will do the job, because by that time they will buy in. If I see that like a first person, like the main team of a company are totally committed for that to happen, yeah, we can do that. Definitely can do that.
So it seems like what you're telling me is that leadership buy-in is potentially the largest single factor. If you can have that leadership buy-in, if they're willing to make those big steps, you're likely to succeed.
I would say with the technology innovation and transformation, for me, it's always like 10% the know-how, the algorithms, 20% technology, and 70% people and processes. So if you don't have this 70% of people and processes, I mean, the buy-in of the main people in a team, and basically attracting the right person, like personnel on board of that process, never gonna succeed.
So what are just a couple?
Even though it's like all around technology, but it's not about technology; it's about the people.
Right. I wholeheartedly agree with you on that. So thinking about that from the perspective of the people, when companies are trying to do a digital transformation, can you just top line a couple of bullet points for what are some key changes that they will need to make in terms of how they organize and how they work?
I mean, the first thing on a company that is ready to call themselves like a digital ready, they need to answer the question, what is the product and how do they create it? Usually what you see is basically company oriented about the business processes. So you have those silos, the people who are in charge of, I don't know, customer communication, marketing, sales, development, and some project management in between to make everything happens. That's not how you usually see the digital kind of company working. You will see the team that you will see instead of project managers, you will see the product owners, which are totally different thing. Basically like a mini CEO, having all the tools and resources necessary to succeed, understanding the KPIs and a strategy behind this product, why he's doing that, what resources he need for that, what time, what KPIs, what he's looking into in terms of data in his day-to-day analysis. So the key component would be, how am I structured? Am I structured to the challenges that I have ahead of me? So that would be like a point number one. Point number two is creating this, I would say, transparent way of backlog prioritization. So why we're doing this instead of that? Why is this is more important? Why we need to work on that particular task before we go to the next one? And accountability of everybody who are doing that, because basically if your backlog is built of some kind of a vision of one person, which is not elaborated to the rest of the team, they will be just reluctant to do the best they can do on the job. If it's not transparent to everybody where you're going, why you're going there, and how everything is estimated on the way, you're not going to get there, right? You'll get somewhere, but relatively close, maybe if you're lucky. But if you do create this transparency on how do you prioritize the backlog of the product development, that's basically give you the tools to get whenever you want. Funny thing is that as soon as you do that, you will see the gaps in the knowledge, the gaps in the roles within your team. And you will also see the people who are still in the old ways of, I should prepare a presentation about that instead of just making things done, right? What I've seen in my experience is that usually percent of people are leaving the companies during those transformation, which is totally fine. I have a lot of examples of people leaving because saying, yeah, you're doing just some crazy shit and that's not going to work. But then after a couple of years or year or whatever, sometime, they're coming back with a totally different mindset and understanding that that's exactly how it should be. That's exactly how it works everywhere else. I just was very used to the old ways,
Right.
how things were built, and I was not ready for the transformation. But I am a professional in what I'm doing. I just needed a little bit different mindset, and I'm there now.
Totally agree. Like all the things you're saying is definitely, it's the stuff that JL and I talk about all the time. Similar perspectives. It's really nice to talk with somebody who's a kindred spirit. What we often find in that situation is, 5 to 10% of the people just can't handle the new mindset shift. It's not that they're incapable per se, but in that moment, they just can't do it. To your point, they might have to go to a different company first so that they get in that mindset of change, and then they can start seeing how helpful the new digital transformation is for them. Yeah. So one last question before we wrap up. What is one key takeaway? If people don't take anything else from the conversation, what's one thing that people should take away?
One. It's difficult to import one. I mean, the digital transformation is not an option. That's the only one thing that I would just put in there. It's not an option. It's just the way to survive. And I would just look around wherever I am and ask myself a question: is this sustainable in years to come? If not, what need to change? Can I change it? If not, and nothing is changing, you're probably not where you want to be.
You're not going to exist in a couple of years. Yeah.
Maybe you will but the interrupters will come. They will come for you.
Exactly. So, Alex, where can people connect with you if they want to connect and contact after the episode?
LinkedIn would be the best place. I'm there, totally open to everybody to connect and happy to have conversations. I share ideas, maybe think on the projects, anything like that.
That's great. Thanks again, Alex, for the great conversation and the great insights today. For everybody listening in, thanks for listening all the way to the end. I know it's not a long episode, but we're grateful for you listening anyway. Hopefully the episode today brought you value. Like normal, we'd love for you to take something from the podcast and go and apply it, and then let us know how it goes. We love hearing success stories or even challenge stories. And again, wherever you are listening, make sure you leave a review wherever you're listening to the podcast. Again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Breakthrough Innovation.
Thank you.